Hello, and today we're going to be dissecting and responding to the Mr. Headache's video on DBD has lied to you. I personally recommend going to watch the video yourself before watching this one, link in the description. Let's get right into it.
Hi guys, how are you doing, and welcome to another Dead by Daylight commentary video. This video is going to be focusing on how Dead by Daylight lied to you. Ooh, scary. This came up to me because I've been thinking a lot of what skillful means in Dead by Daylight lately, considering that this has been the main core of why Xenomorph almost got gutted and nerfed into the ground, and also why Skullmarch is receiving now a very ill-fitting rework to the character.
Let's rip the band-aid off right here. Skillful in this game has no set parameter. People use the term loosely to insult each other or place themselves above others. In my opinion, you win your matches and nothing else matters. If your opponent is better than you but still lost, then that skill expression is pissing in the wind.
And brain around why so many people see so many killers as quote-unquote unskillful. This was further agitated when I was playing Knight the other day on stream, and a survivor claimed that Knight was still brainless, required no skill, and was completely unfair.
I would like to add that anyone will say this about any killer if they're losing or dislike how their opponent played.
So by all means, this is a very unoffensive killer, but for some reason the survivor was still very much driving home as if it was old Knight, that current Knight was still oppressive, unfair, and stupid and all this stuff, and for some reason it was during that endgame chat that it hit me. DBD has lied to you. And DBD has been lying to you for a very, very long time. You see, I was thinking, why would someone still think Knight is skillless in the year of our Lord, 2025? And it boils down to the guard coming at you one direction, the Knight coming at you from the other, which results in you getting down despite the resources you have available. I, as a Xenomorph main, am used to these kind of conversations. The tail attack, while oppressive, does have counterplay, and people dodge it for me pretty frequently. Furthermore, this power can be outright taken away, or at very least constantly stop, started, because the Xenomorph has to stop and break the obstacles, that being the flame turrets.
He's a Xenomorph main, so it's not like he knows better than me, but the tail attack is meant to be a guessing game for dodging solely because the flame turrets are potential counterplay. I think the nerfs missed the point on the initial design.
Yet people still heavily believe Xenomorph is OP and has no counterplay and is stupid and deserves the nerfs that they almost got. Issue being that DBD has lied to you for years. I've been going through a lot of my old footage on old Dead by Daylight. When I was going through a lot of those old matches, some of the tile setups I was watching in those old matches were absolutely insane. There was one match in particular that I was watching on Old Blood Lodge that was absolutely crazy. There was a long wall jungle gym, and then it went straight into a double pallet setup. Yeah, path tiles used to spawn just 2 pallets sometimes. It was amazing. Not for you on the killer side, but it was amazing for survivors. And then it went straight into Killer Shack. So if you don't get how crazy this is, it is a long wall jungle gym. Window faces the 2 pallets. You can loop the 2 pallets, and if the 2 pallets aren't doing it for you, you can loop then into Shack window and then loop Shack. And if Shack's not doing it for you, you can just go back, and you can just go back and forth between all 3 of these incredible tiles all stacked right next to each other. And that wasn't even that crazy uncommon back in the day in Dead by Daylight, that these insanely absurd setups will pop up like literally everywhere. And considering the fact that there was a lack of wealth of M2 killers back in the day to circumvent these loops, these setups were absolute nightmares, and you would get run on killer on these loops for quite some time, regardless of the input of the survivor on the other end. Survivors back then were used to feeling like they were good because these setups were absolutely busted. Even in moderate skill survivor could waste so much of your time just based on the severity of the loop strength. This goes doubly since most killers were just M1 killers, so they couldn't do much about these situations, if anything. Then, as more of Dead by Daylight's history went on, they began to release more and more characters like Pyramid Head that could just shoot a projectile on the floor straight through the loop, so it didn't matter the strength of these obtuse loops, because there were characters that could shoot either over them, through them, or rush around them at such a speed that it didn't matter the strength of the loop because these characters had such good anti-loop.
The killers, by the innate nature of the game, need to have a higher skill expression ceiling than survivors. I know people's feelings on Olmo, a former DBD developer, are mixed, and so are mine. He was right about saying 4 survivors cannot have the equal skill expression as killer on an individual level. A 4v1 game is asymmetrical, and thusly one side must be made stronger than the other on that level. Only by working together should survivors be able to overcome a killer, or by simply having the knowledge and skill gap so large that you can do 5-gen chases. This game needs to be unfair to be fair. In my opinion, the biggest weakness of the survivor role is the unwillingness to work as a team.
Now, I remember when Pyramid Head first dropped, because it was the first DLC that actually dropped in the game after I started playing, a lot of people were claiming Pyramid Head was OP, unfair, annoying, the whole 9 yards. They hated his M2 powers so much, namely because it completely shut down those really strong, overpowered loops. Nowadays, we have more and more characters whose powers just completely circumvent chases even more than that. Victor is a perfect example of this on the Twins. Victor runs at you at 150% speed and can just back rev you the whole time. You're more so in a situation with Twins with Victor's chasing you, kind of just hoping that Victor misses, not as much as you're actually doing anything to actually dodge the character at all. However, what I've noticed, the one shareable trait I've noticed among killers that most people refer to as unfairly designed, is that they forego a portion of the loop game that most people are used to. They either are, like I said, able to go over, around, or through, or rush around the loop in such a way that suddenly it becomes unfun. Knight, that we just talked about, is a perfect example of this. Sandwiches you by adding a second AI character that follows you around until you get between them and there's not much you can do. Xenomorph, you can hit over obstacles with the quick snappy windup, and unless you have taken him out of his power or forced him to stop at a turret, they're probably SOL. Characters that break the mold are the ones that people point to with disgust. Characters that no matter how strong the setup you have, they can use a quick reaction or a skillful play to try and force the survivor into a 50-50 situation. If you lose the 50-50, they say it feels bad and it's unfair and it shouldn't be in the game.
I reiterate that survivors need less skill expression maximums than killer, but as a consequence, they must have finite resources to work with. More killers that bypass these tools limits that skill expression even further by reducing even more chases to guessing games rather than tests of ability.
The truth is, if taking these extreme strength out of these loops was all it took for these characters to start becoming super frustrating, maybe it was the loops that were really good and not you. And this doesn't even begin to get into the perks and items conversation, which could be, frankly, its whole long commentary video of its own right. Dead Hard, just buying a meter of invincible distance, no matter how much you had messed up until that point. Decisive Strike never deactivating for any reason, allowing survivors to be aggressive with unhooks, gen rushing, etc., because they could just get unhooked or run to an altruistic player objective and just stun you and then keep going. Items were also insane too. Let's not forget that brand new parts, despite how strong they still are, used to instantly complete generators, which is just absolutely insane. It's hard not to feel like you're a god or goated at the game when the tools you had to work with was so absurdly broken. And then when you crash into modern DBD, where you don't have these busted setups, these busted perks, these busted items, we're some characters that can play around the instances of that still remain in the game, like Garden Joy main building is a great example of this. It can be really jarring and easy to blame the characters in the game, when in reality, you haven't expanded your skill outside of just the tools that you had that you relied on. Now, I know there's a lot of people probably down here already in the comments writing about, oh, this is such a biased killer main take. Don't worry, I'm coming for you too, killer mains. You're not exempt from this. Overcharge Eruption Call of Brine, a set of perks that probably strikes fear into anybody who played Survivor at any point in the past couple of years. This used to be one of the most overpowered perk combinations the game has ever seen for our nefarious role. It was often referred to as the dry kick meta because all you had to do was kick a gen, then because of Overcharge and Call of Brine, which used to do an immense rate of 200% each, just for a single kick on a generator would absolutely just blow a generator away just for kicking a gen once. Then these issues got even more agitated by Eruption, which when you downed a survivor, anybody that was currently on a gen that you had previously kicked became incapacitated. If you're unaware, incapacitated means you quite literally can't do anything for 25 seconds. That's right. If you just happened to be on a gen and didn't notice somebody was about to go down because you just weren't in a position you could see the chase, guess what? You may be in timeout for 25 seconds.
The biggest failing of fixing the dry kick meta was both nerfing the perks and adding a maximum regression limit to generators. When you can only kick or damage generators a finite amount of times, perks that require you to kick should become stronger, not weaker. My solution would be to add more damage counters based on how many perks are being used to kick the generator. That being said, as much as I adore Incapacitated, it isn't conducive to a good gameplay experience to be told you can't play the game for 25 seconds just for doing your objective.
Because somebody kicked your gen once. 25 seconds of doing nothing because somebody kicked your gen once. It is crazy that that ever existed in the game in any form. That is absurd. Overbright Eruption essentially became what amounts to autopilot for the killer role. Walk up, dry kick, generator, profit. It was the only time in the game that I genuinely stopped playing Survivor off stream. Usually I play with friends, but during that era I just didn't at all because there was just so much value over Overbright Eruption. Everybody was running it that I just genuinely just found no fun in the role. So I just stopped playing for a little bit. It's funny because I was in the process of making this video because somebody actually was talking in my stream the other day because they realized that back in the day they crutched that combo and they didn't realize until they started watching my content that they had really spent a lot of time learning how to play Overbright Eruption, but not really spending a lot of time actually learning how to play the killer role at all. First off, props to you for being humble and admitting that. It's hard to admit a harsh truth like that. Second off, I feel like that actually fits a lot of killer players that started playing around the Overbright Eruption meta. I feel like a lot of people fell into that trap of trying to rely on that overpowered combo to carry their games instead of learning how to play the game themselves. I saw a lot of players either switch to the survival role or outright quit Dead by Daylight when the Overbright Eruption meta actually went away. Citing that behavior hates killer mains and how we can never have anything good. I'm sure you've heard that before. However, I'll say this. If all you were a set of perks, you don't really deserve to have it to begin with. Well,
Ultimately, while skill expression is important in this game, and nobody should gatekeep or denounce someone else's abilities just for having specific playstyles, it doesn't actually matter whether perks or setups equal skill or not. This is a versus-style game, and the best way to play is to solve the puzzle and win.
well, Brand, you've been rambling for quite a while. What's the point here? Well, what I'm saying is that DBD has lied to you. The lie is that you've been a very, very good player for a very long time, but in reality, the nature of the game's extreme balance, which is being solely removed from the game, is really what you were. And the more busted aspects that are being removed from the game, the more it exposes players that were really relying on a perk, item, or add-on and masquerading it as quote-unquote skill. Dead by Daylight has lied to you. By giving this illusion that you were juicing the killer with dead hard, spine chill resilience, DBD has lied to you by giving you the illusion that you really were this big strong power role as a killer by dry kicking a gen over and over using the Overbright Eruption meta. And admitting that maybe you weren't actually all that good and you just preyed upon the unbalanced nature of Dead by Daylight to coast on by, kind of a hard pill to swallow. I mean, you guys are currently seeing that with Chaos Shuffle in the game right now. Despite the point of the mode being a casual hee-hee-ha-ha mode, where instead of bringing the meta perks, you get kind of 4 random perks that may or may not be good that you gotta get the most out of, there are consistently people that bring map offerings, items, and add-ons to try and curb the game in their favor anyways. Even in a casual party mode, certain players just can't bear the thought of leaving home without their trusted boosted items or offerings.
You can't blame someone for wanting to win regardless of being the casual party mode or a top-level tournament.
They have to bring their advantages because they have to rely on them. I think it just outs it even more because since they don't have the perks to rely on because they're random, they feel like they have to fudge the results and fill in the gaps wherever the game allows them to. So to summarize, Dead by Daylight has lied to you, killer or survivor, by being extremely unbalanced for most of its years, and there's still some stuff that they definitely need to work on. The lie is that you were skillful at the game, when in reality for many players is merely being propped up by the unbalance of the era, whether that be busted maps, perks, items, etc. And finding out that truth for some, well, the truth hurts sometimes. The problem is that when people don't accept that they have a lot to learn about the game still, they often try to take it out on the game itself. This is how we get outrageous character guttings like the ones that almost happened to Xenomorph and the ones that they're proposing to Skull Merchant, completely change her into something that is in no way resembling her character. These feelings are dangerous, and they do lead to unhealthy changes. So I really wish the community would be better at being humble, and stop to ask the question, is it the game? Or is it me? Well, what do you think? Do you think Dead by Daylight's lack of balance has unintentionally led a lot of players into believing they're good when they're not? Or do you think there's another reason players have such awful takes when it comes to balance in the game? Let me know down in the comments below. But on that, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I made your day a little bit better today. And if I did not, I'll try to do so again in the next video.
Thank you all for watching. If indeed you still are, go watch theMrHeadache or on Twitch or YouTube. He's a smart Xenomorph main with a lot going on in his head, and I enjoy his almost weekly discussion videos. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think, and be good people.